The ship floated in space above a planet called Velrath Prime. Inside the ship, there was a big party. People from many different planets had come together to celebrate peace between their worlds. There were aliens with crystal skin, aliens with many arms, and aliens that looked like insects. Everyone was dressed in their best clothes. Kevin Brooks stood near the drinks table. He was 28 years old and wore his military dress uniform. He was nervous because his captain had given him a special job. She wanted him to dance with someone tonight. Humans had only joined the group of alien planets 3 years ago. Many aliens still thought humans were clumsy and simple. Kevin was supposed to change that idea. He looked around the room at all the strange beings. Some aliens were already dancing. A group of crystal people clinked together as they moved. An insect alien waved her many arms in a beautiful pattern. Kevin watched them all, but none of them caught his attention. Then he saw her. She stood alone by the far wall. She wore a dress that looked like it was made of shadows. Her skin was very pale with a hint of purple. Her hair was black and fell down her back like a waterfall. But it was her eyes that made Kevin stop breathing for a moment. They were deep red, like dying stars. When she turned her head, he saw that her teeth were sharp, like fangs. Kevin knew she was Velrathi. His training had told him about them. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been around for hundreds of thousands of years. They rarely came to parties like this. They stayed on their dark planet and kept to themselves. The training had also mentioned other things. They drank blood. They were incredibly strong and fast. They could kill a human before he even saw them move, but Kevin could not stop looking at her. She was the most beautiful and the most frightening thing he had ever seen. He watched as other aliens approached her. A crystal noble walked up to her, spoke a few words, then practically ran away. His face looked scared. An insect diplomat tried next, but she also left quickly. Everyone who went near the woman came away looking afraid. Something stirred inside Kevin. Maybe it was the champagne he had drunk. Maybe it was his job to make humans look good. Or maybe it was something else entirely. He had never been able to resist a challenge. He straightened his uniform and started walking toward her. The crowd seemed to move out of his way. As he got closer, her red eyes found him. She watched him approach like a predator watching prey. His skin felt prickly, but he did not stop. He stopped a few feet away from her and smiled. "Good evening. I am Lieutenant Kevin Brooks from Earth." She looked at him for a long moment. Up close, she was even more beautiful and more scary. She stood very still, like a statue, but Kevin could feel power inside her. It was like standing next to a sleeping lion. "I know what you are," she said. Her voice was low and smooth, like music. "Human, your species is very young." "We are," Kevin agreed. "But we learn fast. We even learned how to dance." One of her eyebrows went up. "Dance? This party is supposed to have dancing, right? I noticed you have been standing here alone for a while. I thought maybe you would like a partner." The silence between them stretched out. Kevin became aware that many people were watching them. An insect alien had stopped talking and was staring at him with all 4 of her eyes. "Do you know who I am?" the woman asked. "I know you are Velrathi. That is all my training told me." Something changed in her eyes. Maybe surprise. Maybe amusement. "And yet you come to me. Others run away." Kevin shrugged. The most interesting people are usually the ones others avoid. Besides, my captain told me I had to dance tonight. You look like you might actually know how. He thought she would say no. Ors. His training had been very clear about what Velrathi could do when they were angry. Then, slowly, she held out her hand. "Very well, human. Show me how your young species moves." Kevin took her hand. Her skin was cool but soft. He led her to the center of the room. A space opened up around them like magic. The lights above them seemed to dim, as if the stars wanted to watch. The music changed to something slow. Kevin recognized it as an old Earth song, a piece by Batch. He positioned his hands the way he had been taught, one at her waist and one holding her hand. "This is called a waltz," he explained. "A human dance from a long time ago. The steps are simple, but it is about the connection between two people." She said nothing, but her red eyes never left his face. He started to lead her through the basic steps. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. She followed perfectly. Her movements were smooth and graceful. Kevin made the dance more complex. He added turns and spins. She matched him step for step. Around them, the whole room had gone quiet. "You move well," he said. "Better than I expected." "We Velrathi were dancing when your ancestors lived in caves," she replied. "But your form is interesting. There is emotion in it. There is trust. That is the point. Dancing is about trust. About letting someone else guide you." Something shifted in her expression. The scary look softened a little. "Trust," she repeated, like she was tasting the word. "A dangerous thing to give to a Velrathi. Maybe, but sometimes offering trust is the only way to earn it." The music reached its end. Kevin dipped her slightly, holding her as the last notes faded. For a heartbeat, they stayed frozen like that. Her red eyes locked with his, then the silence broke. People started clapping. Not polite, quiet clapping, but real applause. The insect aliens clicked their jaws in approval. The crystal people chimed together happily. Kevin helped her stand up straight. He suddenly realized how close they were. "Thank you for the dance," he said. She studied him for a long moment. "You are a strange creature, Kevin Brooks. You feel fear, but you still approach. You know danger, but you still offer trust." She paused. "I am Empress Seraphina, ruler of the Velrathi Dominion. I am the keeper of the Crimson Cord. I have been alive for 8,000 years. Kevin felt his blood turn cold. The train had mentioned the Empress, the oldest and most powerful of all Velrathi. Other beings were supposed to bow down just from being near her. He had just asked the Vampire Queen to dance. "I see you understand now," she said with a small smile. "Now you know why the others ran." Kevin swallowed hard but made himself look into her eyes. "I do not regret it. It was a good dance." Empress Seraphine's lips curved upward, showing just the tips of her fangs. "Yes," she said softly. "It was." She turned to leave, then looked back over her shoulder. "The Velrathi have not taken humans seriously. We thought you were too young and too weak. Perhaps we were wrong." She glided away. The crowd parted for her like water around a rock. Kevin stood alone in the middle of the room, his heart beating fast. He had just danced with the Vampire Queen, and somehow he was still alive. 3 weeks went by after the party. Kevin went back to his normal work on the ship. He wrote reports and went to boring meetings. He tried not to think about red eyes and cool skin. He failed. The ship was getting ready to leave when a message came through. Captain Laura Chun called Kevin to her office. Her face showed nothing, but Kevin knew something important had happened. "Lieutenant Brooks, we have a situation," she said. Kevin stood straight. "Yes, ma'am." "The Velrathi Imperial Court has sent us a request. They want you to be humanity's ambassador to their world. For 1 whole year." Kevin felt like the floor had moved under his feet. "Me, ma'am? I am just a junior officer. There must be better people for this job." "There are." The Velrathi rejected all of them. "They only want you." Captain Chun leaned back in her chair. The request came from Empress Seraphina herself. "Do you want to tell me what really happened at that party?" "I asked her to dance, ma'am." "Yes, I heard." 47 different reports told me about it. What I want to know is why you did it." Kevin thought about his answer. She was standing alone. "I thought she might want a partner." Captain Chun stared at him for a long time. Then she laughed. It was a short, surprised sound. "You saw the most feared person in the galaxy and decided she looked lonely?" "I would not say it that way, ma'am. How would you say it?" Kevin thought about those red eyes that held something other than cruelty. About her voice when she talked about trust like it was a strange idea. About how this ancient, powerful being had let a young human lead her across a dance floor. "I think she was tired of everyone running away," he said. Captain Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "The Volrathi control 37 star systems. Their technology is far better than ours in many ways. If we became their allies, it would change everything for humanity. But they have refused to talk with us for 3 years. Until now. You want me to accept," Kevin said. "I want you to understand what you are getting into. The Volrathi are not human. They think differently. They live for thousands of years. Whatever interest the Empress has in you, I promise it is not simple." Kevin nodded slowly. "And if I say no? Then we lose this chance. Maybe forever." The Volrathi are patient. They have waited thousands of years for things before. They will not wait again if we insult them now. It was not really a choice. Kevin had known that from the moment Captain Chun said the Empress's name. "When do I leave?" The shuttle flew down through the dark sky of Volrath Prime. The planet had thick clouds that blocked most of the sunlight. Everything below was in a kind of endless evening. Cities glowed with lights that looked like fallen stars. Kevin watched through the window as the Imperial Palace came into view. It was huge. Black towers and red spires rose from the mountainside like crystals growing from rock. The buildings were beautiful but strange. They were made by minds that did not think like human minds. A Volrathi woman met him when he landed. She was tall and pale with silver hair and dark red eyes. She said her name was Duchess Muriel, first attendant to the Crimson Court. "The Empress has been waiting for you," Muriel said. Her voice gave nothing away. "She will see you in the Twilight Hall this evening." "I am honored," Kevin replied. The Volrathi are famous for their hospitality. Something crossed Muriel's face. Maybe amusement, maybe pity. "Be careful in these halls. Human. Not everyone is happy that you are here. There are those who remember when we hunted creatures like you. It was not a threat. It was a warning." They gave Kevin a room in the outer palace. The furniture was dark purple and black, but it had been changed to fit a human body. A window looked out over the city below. Kevin could see Volrathi walking through the streets. Their pale bodies looked like ghosts in the dim light. When evening came, a servant took Kevin to the Twilight Hall. Walking through the palace was confusing. The hallways seemed to change when he was not looking. The lights were dim because Volrathi eyes did not need brightness. Sometimes Kevin passed other Volrathi. Some looked curious. Some looked like they wanted to hurt him. The Twilight Hall was enormous. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered with crystals that glowed softly. At the far end, on a throne made from a single giant ruby, sat Empress Seraphina. She was even more impressive here. She wore armor now, dark metal plates that seemed to swallow light. A crown of twisted silver sat on her head. Her red eyes watched as Kevin walked toward her. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He stopped at the right distance and bowed. "Your Imperial Majesty, I am honored by your invitation. Rise, Kevin Brooks." Her voice filled the hall. "I did not bring you here for formalities." Kevin stood up and looked into her eyes. He could feel other people in the shadows around the hall. Courtiers and guards were watching everything. "May I ask why you did bring me here, Your Majesty?" Seraphina rose from her throne and walked down the steps toward him. People in the shadows whispered to each other. 8,000 years, she said, stopping in front of him. I have ruled for 8,000 years. I have seen species come and go. I have watched stars be born and die. I have learned certain truths about the universe. She slowly walked around him. Kevin made himself stand still. Lesser beings fear power. They bow and say what they think I want to hear. They beg for my favor. Not once, in all these thousands of years, has anyone simply asked me to dance. She stopped in front of him again. She was close enough that he could see every detail of her armor. You interest me, human. Your species interest me. You are young and weak, and your lives are so short. I could close my eyes and miss whole generations of your people. And yet you approached me without fear. I was afraid, Kevin admitted. I approached you anyway. Yes, that is what interests me. She turned and walked toward a door that appeared in the wall. Come, we have much to discuss. Kevin followed her into a smaller room. It was a private study filled with books and objects that must have been thousands of years old. She pointed to a chair, and he sat down. She poured 2 glasses of dark red liquid from a crystal bottle. Do not worry, she said, seeing his face. This is wine. Varathi wine. Safe for humans. He took the glass and sipped. The wine was unlike anything he had ever tasted. Complex and deep, with flavors he could not name. Everyone thinks the Varathi do not like other species, Serafina said, sitting across from him. They are partly right. We have seen too many empires fall. Too many species destroy themselves. We learned long ago that caring about young, short-lived things only brings pain. Then why bring me here? Because I am tired of pain. She swirled the wine in her glass. 8,000 years of being careful. 8,000 years of watching from the shadows. Perhaps it is time for something different. You want an alliance with humanity. I want to understand humanity. Your species is strange, Kevin Brooks. You came into the galaxy like children running into a room full of adults. And instead of being scared, you just started making friends. Many species respect you now. Even species that usually keep to themselves have shown interest. She paused. And you dance with vampire queens. Kevin put down his glass. What exactly do you want from me? A year. You will spend a year in my court. You will learn our ways while I learn yours. If we find reasons for friendship at the end, then the Varathi might come out of hiding. If not, you will go home with knowledge no human has ever had. And during this year, what do I have to do? Be honest, Serafina said simply. I have had people tell me only what I want to hear for 8,000 years. What I want from you is truth. However uncomfortable it might be. You want me to argue with you. I want you to challenge me. To show me what makes humanity so hard to stop. To treat me not as an empress, but as a person. Like you did at the party. Kevin thought about this. It was an amazing offer. It was also very dangerous. A year telling uncomfortable truths to someone who could kill him with a thought. I have one condition, he said. Serafina raised an eyebrow. You dare to make conditions? You asked for honesty. This is honest. If I'm going to spend a year telling you hard truths, I need to know you will not kill me for it. For a moment, the air in the room felt heavy. Then Serafina laughed. It was a real laugh, full of delight. You have my word, Kevin Brooks. For 1 year, I will protect you. No harm will come to you from me or my people, no matter what truths you speak. She held out her hand. Kevin shook it. Her cool fingers wrapped around his. Then I accept, Your Majesty. Serafina, she corrected. When we are alone, you will call me Serafina. Titles get boring after a few thousand years. Kevin nodded slowly. Serafina then. Her smile showed the tips of her fangs. Welcome to the Crimson Court, Kevin. Try not to die. 50 years passed. Kevin Brooks, now known throughout the galaxy as the First Bridge, stood on the observation deck of a new embassy that floated in space above Velrith Prime. His hair had turned silver. His face had lines from decades of life. But his eyes still held the same determination that had driven him to ask an alien. Queen Dance half a century ago thought the embassy was proof of everything they had worked for. A joint project between humanity and the Velrethi Dominion. Workers from both species and a dozen others filled its halls. It was a symbol of cooperation that would have seemed impossible before that night at the party. Seraphina appeared at his side. She looked exactly the same as the day they met. That had been the hardest part. Watching himself grow old while she stayed forever young. They had talked about it often. The unfairness of it. The grief that waited for her. I would not trade a single day, she had told him once. Not one moment of loving you, no matter the cost. Now she slipped her hand into his. He felt the familiar coolness of her skin. Amy's ship just arrived, Seraphina said. She is eager to see you. Kevin smiled. His sister had followed her love of alien biology into a career, studying Velrethi and human relationships. She had married a diplomat from another species 20 years ago. A match that would have been shocking once, but was now just a little unusual. How many grandchildren is she bringing this time? All 7. She said something about wanting them to spend time with their uncle while they can. Kevin's smile flickered. They both knew what she meant. Human lifespans had grown longer through medical advances, but there were limits. He had another decade, maybe 2 if he was lucky. That was nothing compared to forever. Walk with me, he said. They moved through the embassy's hallways. Staff members nodded to them as they passed. Humans and Velrethi working side by side. Crystal people and insect people, and members of species that had joined the expanded alliance in the decades since the rebellion. Do you remember what you said to me that night in the garden? Kevin asked. About the Velrethi being too old to hope? I remember everything about those early days. Every conversation, every look, every moment. I was thinking about legacy. About what we leave behind when we are gone. Seraphina stopped and turned to face him. Her red eyes held a depth of feeling that had only grown over the decades. You have left behind more than you know, Kevin. The alliance between our peoples. The changes in Velrethi society. The countless lives saved by cooperation instead of fighting. She touched his face gently. You taught an ancient queen to hope again. That is a legacy beyond measure. I was just a junior officer who asked a woman to dance. You were much more than that. You were brave enough to see past appearances. To offer trust to someone who had forgotten what trust meant. You changed me, Kevin, and through me you changed everything. He leaned into her touch, memorizing the feeling. I do not regret any of it. I want you to know that. Whatever time I have left, I do not regret a single day. Neither do I, she kissed him softly. Neither will I, when you are gone and I am left with nothing but memories. Because the memories will be enough. They will be more than enough. They continued walking, hand in hand, as the stars wheeled slowly beyond the windows. A human and a Velrethi, mortal and eternal. Bound by something that went beyond the differences between their species. Behind them, in the embassy's common areas, beings from across the galaxy talked and worked and built the foundations of a future that would have seemed impossible 50 years ago. A future born from a single act of courage. A single moment of connection. A future that began when a young human asked an alien woman to dance. The recording ended. And the students in the history class sat in silence. Professor Maya Santos, great-grandniece of the legendary Kevin Brooks, closed the display. She looked at her students with a small smile. Kevin Brooks died peacefully at the age of 102. He was surrounded by his family and the woman he loved. Empress Seraphina ruled for another 3,000 years. She never took another consort. She carried his memory with her always. When she finally chose to enter the eternal sleep, she was buried beside him. Their tomb stands on Velrath Prime to this day. A student raised her hand. "Professor, do you think he knew?" When he asked her to dance, "Do you think he knew what would happen?" Maya smiled. "I think he knew that some chances only come once. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is try, even when you are afraid, especially when you are afraid." And the Empress? Do you think she knew? I think she knew that she was tired of being alone, and that sometimes hope comes in forms we do not expect. Maya looked out the window at the stars. That is the lesson of their story, I think. Not that love wins every time, or that courage is always rewarded, but that connection, true connection, is worth any risk, worth any sacrifice. She turned back to her students. "Now, for tomorrow, I want you to read chapters 12 through 15 of the history of human and Volrathi relations. Pay attention to the diplomatic changes that came after the rebellion." As the students filed out, Maya stayed by the window. Somewhere out there, in the eternal twilight of Velrath Prime, two graves stood side by side, a human and a Velrathi, mortal and eternal, together forever. She touched a small pendant at her throat. It had been passed down through her family for generations. A small crystal that had once belonged to a young officer who had been brave enough to try the impossible. "Thank you, Uncle Kevin," she whispered, "for everything." The stars glittered in response, unchanged and unchanging, witnesses to a love story that had reshaped the galaxy. And somewhere, in whatever lay beyond death, Kevin Brooks smiled and took Seraphine's hand. They danced among the stars, together at last, for all eternity. The end. The months that followed were unlike anything Kevin had ever known. He attended court events and diplomatic meetings. He watched how Velrathi politics worked. Teachers came to help him learn the Volrathi language, their history, and their customs. Most importantly, he spent hours talking with Seraphina herself. She was brilliant. She was terrifying and ancient and brilliant. Her knowledge covered things that human science had not even discovered yet. She had seen history happen. She had watched a dozen galactic empires rise and fall. She had met species that no longer existed. She had walked on worlds that had been swallowed by dying suns hundreds of years ago. But for all her knowledge, she was also deeply lonely. Kevin began to understand this as the months passed. The Velrathi lived for thousands of years, and Seraphina had outlived even most of her own kind. Her court was filled with people who feared her, worshipped her, or tried to use her. But no one simply talked with her. No one treated her as anything but the Empress. Their conversations covered every topic: politics and philosophy, art and science, the meaning of life and the nature of thinking. Kevin argued with her about human books, which she found interesting because humans thought so much about death. She taught him about Volrathi art that took hundreds of years to finish, works so big that no human could ever see them completed. And slowly, impossibly, they became friends. "Tell me about your family," Seraphina said one evening. They were walking through the palace gardens. The plants here were strange, dark things that bloomed in the endless twilight. Their flowers glowed softly with their own light. "My parents are teachers," Kevin said. "My father teaches history at a university. My mother teaches literature to younger students. I have a younger sister named Amy who studies alien biology. You miss them?" "Yes, but we talk often. Distance is not what it used to be." Seraphina was quiet for a moment. "I had brothers and sisters once. 3 brothers, 2 sisters. They are all gone now. Some died in wars. Others died from a sickness that killed many of our elders thousands of years ago. I am sorry. It was a very long time ago. Longer than your species has existed. She stopped beside a flower that glowed blue. But I realize I have not spoken of them in centuries. There is no one left who knew them. Kevin watched her face in the soft light of the garden. For all her power, for all her thousands of years of life, she was mourning. Still, after all this time, "Tell me about them," he said quietly. "I would like to hear." She looked at him then, her red eyes unreadable. Then, slowly, she began to speak. Kevin listened as the ancient queen shared memories that had been locked away for thousands of years. Not everyone in the Crimson Court was happy about the human. Kevin learned about the opposition slowly, through whispers and small threats. A group of old-fashioned nobles, led by Lord Cassius, believed that humans were nothing but food that had forgotten its place. "The Empress plays with a pet," Cassius said one evening, loud enough for Kevin to hear. "Let us hope she remembers to get rid of it when she grows bored." Kevin turned to face the Lord directly. Cassius was tall even for a Volrathi. His features looked like they were carved from stone. His eyes were like frozen blood. He had been a general in ancient wars. He had conquered whole star systems. "Lord Cassius," Kevin said calmly, "I understand your concerns about me being here. The relationship between humans and Volrathi is new. It is natural to be careful about new things. Careful." Cassius stepped closer, looking down at Kevin. "You misunderstand, creature. I am not careful. I am disgusted. Your species should be grateful that we no longer hunt like our ancestors did. We are grateful. We also hope that our species can become friends. Different does not have to mean enemy. You are prey. We are predators. That is all there is between us. Is that what you believed about all the other species you conquered?" The insect people would disagree. So would the crystal people and many others who have found ways to live alongside the Volrathi. Cassius's expression darkened. Those species proved their worth through blood and fire. What have humans proved? That you can dance? We have proved that we are willing to try. That we will walk into the court of beings who once hunted us and offer our hand in friendship. That takes a different kind of courage than fighting. It takes a fool's courage, maybe. Kevin met the Lord's stare without looking away. But here I am, 6 months into a year I was told I would not survive. Still breathing, still talking, still trying. I think that is worth something. The silence stretched between them. Around them, the court had gone quiet. Everyone was watching Dot. Then Cassius laughed, a cold sound without warmth. "You have spirit, creature. Spirit is easy to break, but fun while it lasts." He turned away. "Enjoy your remaining months, pet." Kevin watched him go. He had made an enemy, a dangerous one. But he had also earned a small amount of respect. It would have to be enough. The incident in the 8th month changed everything. Kevin was walking back from a late meeting when they caught him. 4 young Volrathi nobles who had drunk too much blood wine. They decided the human needed to learn his place. They trapped him in a hallway far from his room. Their eyes glowed in the darkness. "The Empress's favorite," the leader sneered. His name was Victor, the youngest son of a small, noble house. He had everything to prove and nothing to lose. "Let us see how much she likes you after we have some fun." Kevin knew he could not outrun them, could not fight them. A Volrathi could move faster than human eyes could follow. They were strong enough to bend metal, but humans had other weapons. "Before you do anything," Kevin said calmly, "you should know that I have a communication device linked directly to the Empress's security. One word from me and guards will fill this hallway. You will be dead before sunrise." Victor stopped. "You are lying, am I? The Empress gave me her word of protection. Do you really think she would leave me without a way to call for help?" It was a lie. The device in Kevin's pocket was just a normal communicator. But the young nobles did not know that. The mention of Seraphon's promise made them hesitate. "We could kill you before you speak," Victor said, but his voice was less certain now. "You could try, but I have spent 8 months in this court. I have learned a few things, like the fact that your house is already in trouble for your father's debts. One more problem, and you will be sent to the outer territories. Is killing a human pet really worth losing everything?" The nobles looked at each other. Kevin could see them thinking, their desire to hurt him fighting against their fear of consequences. Finally, Victor stepped back. "This is not over, human. I did not think it was. But for tonight, we are done." He walked past them without looking back. He did not start shaking until he reached his room. Then he shook for a long time. Safina found out. She always found out everything that happened in her court. "You could have been killed," she said, visiting his room late that night. "You should have called the guards. I handled it. You lied. You risked your life on a lie." Kevin looked at her, this ancient being who could crush him without effort if she wanted to. "I learned from watching you," he said. "Sometimes looking like you have power is more important than actually having it." Those nobles were drunk and stupid, but they were not completely foolish. They knew what would happen if they killed someone under your protection. I just reminded them. Seraphina studied him for a long moment. "You continue to surprise me, Kevin Brooks. Is that good or bad?" "I have not decided yet." She moved to the window, looking out over the city. "The reports on humanity describe your species as stubborn, unwilling to give up even when you cannot win. Is that a criticism?" "No, it is respect." She turned back to him. "Your species has something that others lack. Something that even the Vorathi, with all our thousands of years, have perhaps lost. What is that?" "Hope." The word seemed hard for her to say. "We are old, Kevin. So old that we have forgotten what it is to believe that tomorrow might be better than today. We have seen too much to imagine that anything really changes." She crossed the room to stand before him. "But your people look at the stars and see possibilities instead of threats. You meet alien species and assume friendship until proven wrong. You dance with vampire queens. It has gotten me this far." "Yes," she reached out. Her cool fingers touched his cheek. "It has." The touch was gentle, almost careful, as if she was afraid he might break. Kevin held very still, his heart beating fast for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "Kevin," Seraphina said softly, "I am going to tell you something I have told no one in over 1,000 years. "What is it?" "I am tired of being alone." The words hung in the air between them. Kevin looked into her red eyes and saw, beneath the power and the ancient wisdom, a being who had outlived everything she had ever loved, who had spent thousands of years building walls around herself because the alternative was too painful. "You do not have to be," he said. "You will die. In what feels like moments to me, you will grow old and die. That is the tragedy of caring for things that do not last. Then let it be a tragedy." Kevin reached up and covered her hand with his. "Let it hurt. Let it matter. Is that not better than feeling nothing at all?" Seraphina was silent. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with feelings she had pushed down for centuries. "You foolish, beautiful, impossible creature." She leaned in and pressed her lips to his. The relationship between the human ambassador and the vampire empress became the most talked about thing in the galaxy within weeks. Some people celebrated it as proof that different species could love each other. Others called it wrong, an insult to the natural order. The Vorathi court was split. Some supported their empress's choice. Others plotted against the human who had stolen their ancient queen's heart. Kevin was made official consort after the year ended. It was a title that had not been given in 3,000 years. The ceremony was complicated, involving rituals older than human history. Afterward, Seraphina stood before her court and announced that any threat to Kevin would be treated as a threat to her crown. It should have kept him safe. It did not. Lord Cassius had gathered a group of old-fashioned nobles. They believed the Velrathi had grown weak under Seraphine's rule. They thought accepting humans as equals was the final sign of their decline. They whispered in dark corners about going back to the old ways. Back to when the Velrathi were the undisputed masters of space. Kevin learned about the plot from an unlikely source. Duchess Muriel, Seraphine's first attendant, caught him alone in the library one day. "They are planning something," Muriel told him quietly. "I do not know the details, but Cassius has been meeting with the commanders of the Outer Fleet. There is talk of challenging the Empress directly. A rebellion? Perhaps. Or perhaps something more clever. Our laws of who rules next are complicated. If Seraphina can be shown to be unfit to rule because she chose a human consort," Muriel nodded grimly, "some would consider that proof of madness." Kevin felt cold. Does Seraphina know? She suspects, but she does not want to act against Cassius without proof. She remembers the old wars too well. Another civil war would destroy our people. Then we need proof. Muriel looked at him with something like respect. "You would put yourself in danger to protect her?" "I would do anything to protect her, even if it makes you a target." "If Cassius learns you are looking into his plans, he will have all the reason he needs to move against you." Kevin thought about the woman who had kissed him, who had whispered about loneliness and hope and impossible things. The woman who had ruled for 8,000 years and had finally allowed herself to feel again. Some things are worth the risk. The investigation took months. Kevin worked carefully, gathering information through conversations and watching people closely. He learned which nobles were loyal to Cassius, which could be convinced to change sides, and which were just too scared to choose. He also learned how deep his enemy's hatred went. Cassius did not just want to replace Seraphina. He wanted to remake Velrathi society in the image of its ancient past. A past where other species were food, where the strong ruled without mercy, where the universe was divided into hunters and victims. Humanity would suffer first, Kevin told Seraphina late one night. He laid out the evidence he had gathered. Cassius has been talking with groups in the galaxy who do not like humans. They plan to throw humanity out of the Alliance once he takes power. Seraphine's expression was hard as stone. He has also been talking with separatist groups and criminal organizations. He has been building support that goes far beyond our borders. This is not just about you anymore. This is about the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Yes. She was silent for a moment. I had hoped to avoid this. I have seen too many wars, Kevin. Too much death. I thought that if I waited, the extremists would lose support. They have not. If anything, our relationship has given them something to rally around. I know. She turned to face him. In her eyes, Kevin saw something he had never seen before. Fear. Not for herself, but for him. This will become violent. There is no other way now. And when it does, you will be in terrible danger. I am already in danger. I have been in danger since I asked you to dance. This is different. Open fighting will give Cassius chances he does not have now. His killers are the best in the Dominion. Damn, we need to move first. Give me time to reach the human fleet. If we can work together, your forces and ours, you would bring humanity into a Velrathi civil war? Kevin took her hands in his. I would bring humanity in to defend the future. If Cassius wins, it will not just be bad for the Velrathi. It will be terrible for everyone who believes that different species can live together. Everything the Alliance stands for will fall apart. Seraphina looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Go, talk to your people. But Kevin, she pulled him close, her arms tight around him. Come back to me. Promise me you will come back. I promise, he said, knowing he might not be able to keep that promise. The next weeks were a blur of secret messages and desperate planning. Kevin reached out to Captain Chun, now Admiral Chun, commanding the human ships in the area. He explained the plot, the evidence, what was at stake. You want me to send human ships into a Volrathi power struggle, Chun said. Her image flickered on the secure screen. I want you to send human ships to defend our future in the Alliance. If Cassius wins, we lose everything we have built. Every friendship, every agreement, every bit of progress we have made. Chun was quiet for a long time. I will meet to talk to the Admiralty. This is bigger than what I can decide alone. How long? Days. Maybe weeks. We might not have weeks. Then you will have to buy us time. Chun's expression softened. Kevin, you have done something amazing here. The relationship you have built with the Empress has changed how everyone sees humanity. Do not throw that away by dying in the first battle. I will try not to. But Chun, if we have to choose between saving me and saving what we have built, do not finish that sentence. That is an order. Kevin smiled despite how serious everything was. Yes, ma'am. The Battle of Velrath Prime began at dawn. Cassius's forces attacked without warning. They came out of hiding from all over the system. 20 ships of the Outer Fleet, crewed by loyalists who thought they were saving their people, opened fire on the palace's space defenses. Kevin was in the command center when the attack started. He stood beside Seraphina as reports flooded in. The Empress was transformed. The gentle woman he loved was replaced by the warrior who had united her species through blood and fire thousands of years ago. Send the guard to the eastern approaches, she ordered. Her voice cut through the chaos. Signal the reserve fleet to engage. And find me Cassius. Your Majesty, the human ships are still 2 hours away. Then we hold for 2 hours. She turned to Kevin. You need to go to the shelter. The palace is not safe anymore. I am not leaving you. Kevin, this is not something we can discuss. If you die here, if I die here, I die fighting for something that matters. He met her eyes without looking away. You asked me once what made humanity different. This is it. We do not abandon the people we love. Seraphina stared at him. For a moment, the battle seemed to fade away. Then she nodded, a fierce pride in her eyes. Then stay close to me, and try not to get killed. The fighting lasted for hours. Kevin watched as Velrathi died on both sides. Ships exploded in space above. Soldiers fought in the palace hallways below. He saw Seraphina command her forces with skill born of thousands of years of experience. She turned every setback into an opportunity, every loss into a reason to fight harder. And then, finally, the human fleet arrived. Admiral Chun's ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel like angels of vengeance. Their weapons were already firing. The rebels, caught between the loyalist forces and this unexpected help, began to break. Kevin was there when they captured Cassius. The ancient general was cornered in the throne room by Seraphina herself. He knelt before his empress, his forces shattered, his rebellion ruined. You have brought aliens into our affairs, Cassius spat. You have polluted our bloodline with human weakness. I have shown our people that strength can be found in unexpected places, Seraphina replied. That working together is not defeat. That love is not corruption. She looked at Kevin, standing at her side, beaten and exhausted but alive. You saw a human and thought prey. I saw a human and found hope. Then you are a fool, and our people will suffer for your foolishness. Perhaps, but not today. Seraphina gestured, and guards dragged Cassius away. The rebellion was over. In the aftermath, As the wounded were cared for and the dead were mourned, Kevin stood with Serafina on the observation deck. They watched the stars together. "The Alliance will want to talk about what happened here," Kevin said. "A civil war, human involvement, all of it. Let them talk. What matters is that we survived." She took his hand. Her fingers wrapped around his. "That we survived together. The Human Council will have questions about our relationship, about what it means for diplomacy. Then we will answer their questions. Honestly, openly, as we have answered everything." She turned to face him. "I have lived for 8,000 years, Kevin. I have ruled an empire, conquered worlds, watched civilizations rise and fall. And I have never been as certain of anything as I am of this." "Of what?" "That meeting you was the best thing that has happened to me in thousands of years. That whatever comes next, we will face it together." Kevin looked at this ancient queen, this being of power and grace and terrible beauty. He saw not an empress, but a woman who had finally found something worth fighting for. "Together," he agreed. "Always,"